Thanks, everyone. Happy New Year for those of you I haven't seen. I'm just going to say a couple quick items at the top, and then I will be happy to answer as many of your questions as I can get to. I also want to note that my mom is with me today, Jane Harf, so everyone has to be extra nice today. She went to the State Department briefing, too, so we can compare them later. Happy New Year. As I said, a lot already has happened in 2015. Of course, the tragic events in Paris and elsewhere. Secretary Kerry, as you all know, has landed in Paris. Will be there tomorrow for meetings with President Hollande and Foreign Minister Fabius to express our condolences and talk about, of course, how close our relationship is. But as you all know, there's a lot happening elsewhere in the world, too. The Iran talks are underway. Our team is in Geneva meeting with the Iranians right now on the nuclear issue. This will be, I think, a key few months for those talks. As we all know and certainly have talked about, we're getting ready for the State of the Union coming up, which obviously is only partially about foreign policy, but certainly will be a chance for the president to outline his agenda for the year and talk a little bit about priorities as well. And our new Cuba policy is moving forward. I know that's been a huge priority of ours, certainly announcing the policy change in December, but moving forward today with the new regulations on travel, on commerce, and then heading into the talks that Assistant Secretary Roberta Jacobson will have next week in Cuba on how to move the normalization process forward. So clearly, those are just a few. There are many, many, many other priorities that you all are very familiar with that we have for the year. A lot on the agenda, certainly. And so with that, I think I will ask you all to start asking questions. Yes.
Please remember to wait for the microphone and give us your name and your outlet before you ask your question. Thanks.
We're starting with the Dean of the Foreign Press Center briefings right here in the middle.
Thank you, Maria, and thanks as usual to our hosts at the FPC. Happy New Year to you.
Thank you.
I certainly hope and wish for the new year to be better than the old one in the bilateral relations between U.S. and Russia. And I keep hearing that Americans are making proposals for the resumption of at least some of the working groups in the Presidential Commission, and actually that the Secretary Kerry, may visit Moscow sooner rather than later. So I was hoping that you may share something with me about that. And my second question is about the anniversary of the victory in the Second World War, 70th anniversary. It is a very big deal for my country. I hope it is a big deal for yours.
Absolutely.
Maybe you can tell me about what you are planning for the celebrations. And in that context, the Ukrainian Prime Minister recently in Germany made a controversial statement that the Soviet Union invaded Germany in that war. So if you could comment on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, just to start, a few brief comments. I would actually agree with your first statement that the U.S. and I think our NATO allies doesn't seek confrontation with Russia. We wish we had a different relationship. That relationship, though, will have to change and have to be based on specific steps Russia takes, specifically over the issue of Ukraine. And there is an agreement, the Minsk agreements, in place that if Russia upholds its end of what it agreed to, then we can start moving forward with a different kind of relationship. But that remains to be seen. Just over the few days, there's been a lot of increased fighting, particularly around the Donetsk airport and elsewhere. So the diplomatic path is always open. The Secretary has been absolutely clear about that. We've also said that we will continue working with Russia on areas where we can work together, like Iran and Iran's nuclear program. So it is certainly not a zero-sum game by any means, and we will keep working together where we can, keep disagreeing when we do, and try and see if we can, as you said, have a different kind of 2015. That depends on Russia taking specific actions, though. When it comes to the anniversary, I know there are a lot of anniversary events that people are starting to talk about. Last year we had some with D-Day, and we've seen other historical anniversaries come around. It's just really early in the planning right now for those. Obviously, we're all aware of the history of how we and the then Soviet Union worked together, of course, when it came to fighting fascism. But in terms of the specific anniversary events, we just don't. A lot of planning, is still ongoing on those.
So what about Secretary Kerry's plans
Oh.
and the Prime Minister's comments?
So Secretary Kerry's travel plans, no travel to announce at this point. He talks to Foreign Minister Lavrov quite a bit, and they meet in a variety of places around the world when they're in the same place at the same time, but nothing to announce. I actually haven't seen, was it the Ukrainian Prime Minister, you said, comments? I hadn't seen those, so I don't want to comment on them. Look, we're all aware of the history here, clearly, and just don't have a lot more on the anniversary than that. Yes, let's stay in the front row.
Thank you, Maria, and welcome, the proud mom.
Thank you.
John Zan with CTI TV of Taiwan. Have a question with regards to Taiwan. Has the United States resolved the controversy regarding a flag-raising ceremony at the Twin Oaks on New Year's Day with Taiwan? How did Assistant Secretary Russell's meeting with Representative Shen on Monday go in terms of restoring U.S.-Taiwan mutual trust? Was there any new understanding reached with regards to the use of the Twin Oaks in the future? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Well, as we've said, we've raised this incident with Taiwan at senior levels. We're not going to get into the specifics of those discussions, even the most recent ones, and we continue to be disappointed with this incident, as we have made clear. But don't have more details than that to share about our private conversations. Obviously, we're focused on moving forward here.
Do you consider this closed, resolved?
We're focused on the future and going forward, yes. And then after you, I'm going to New York, so hang with me there in New York.
Okay, hi, I'm Stefan Grober with Euronews, European Television. On the fight against ISIL, ISIS, we've seen some troubling reports coming out of Syria and Iraq this week, suggesting that in Syria, despite 3 months of airstrikes, the insurgents seem to be gaining ground, and in Iraq, the government is not happy with the coalition effort to train the ground troops. What's your reading of the situation, and are there any plans to improve the situation?
Well, we know this is going to be a long fight here. We know that. The Iraqis know that. The Syrian opposition knows that. We understand how much the Iraqi people and the Syrian people want to win this fight against ISIL. We all need to do more, and we've been doing more. The Iraqis are doing more. I would note that U.S. and coalition partners have conducted over 1,600 airstrikes on a nearly daily basis against ISIL targets. We've taken out ISIL fighters, commanders, hundreds of vehicles and tanks, nearly 200 oil and gas facilities, their infrastructure that finances them. So we have helped the Iraqis push them back from territory, taking out their commanders, their fighters, their training facilities, but this is a long fight. And so obviously everyone needs to do more. We're standing up more training of the Iraqis. The Department of Defense is working on the train and equip program for the Syrian opposition. That's going to get off the ground soon, so more things are going to continue happening on that front. And let's go to New York now.
Thank you very much, Ms. Orff. I do appreciate that you already have honored our interest in other matters than they're usually on the daily press agenda or press roster. I will start with, since that is always very important to hear the word from Washington, with the problems in Western Balkan, particularly with the freedom of media and the freedom of expression, not only in the light of, or in the context, rather, of the happenings in Paris, but rather general trend. We have a police raid in Sarajevo, Bosnia, on independent media. Just 2 weeks ago, we have a, if I can use media war in Belgrade with independent media in Serbia with the current government. So the word from Washington would be really appreciated on that. How do you see it? What can you say on that? And if I also may ask, what are the priorities for the newly arrived American U.S. ambassador to Sarajevo, just arrived 2-3 days ago, on the agenda on the current issues? Thank you.
Well, generally speaking, I'm not familiar with all of the specific cases you raise on the press issues, but generally speaking, we certainly support the freedom of media everywhere around the world, not just there, but everywhere around the world, to operate without harassment, without intimidation, without discrimination. That's unfortunately something we've had to talk about too often in a lot of places around the world recently. So certainly, generally speaking, that's a principle that I think we hold very near and dear, not just because of what's happened in Paris, but because there are places around the world where we have seen the space for media shrinking. And that's not the trajectory things should be taking here when it comes to media freedom. I think I'll probably let our newly arrived ambassador outline their own priorities. I have a feeling if they haven't already, they will be. Obviously, it's an important relationship. We have a lot of new ambassadors actually arriving in a lot of our posts around the world, which I think is a good sign for American engagement, not just in Sarajevo, but elsewhere. So I will defer to them. Yes, do you have a quick follow-up?
Follow-up, yes. Can you say at least a few words for the newly elected president of Croatia, Ms. Kolinda Grabar-Kitarović?
I think I'll probably defer to my colleagues there to speak to that. I don't think we've spoken to it from Washington, but I can check for you and get something to you if we have. Yes, stay in the front row. It's coming right here.
Song Chul-ri, SBS from South Korea. I have a quick question because of new schedule. I understand the spokesperson Jen Psaki and you definitely rejected North Korea's proposal to that the link to suspension of military exercise and also nuclear test. Is there a definite defensive period? No other possibilities? And second question is today New York Times in its editorial proposed that it's time to test North Korea's intentions with that subject. What is the response to that?
Well, I think a couple points. The recent statements from the DPRK that inappropriately link what are routine U.S. ROK exercises. They're transparent, they're annual. We tell everyone before we do them, and they are defensive in nature. Linking those with the possibility of a nuclear test by North Korea is an implicit threat. North Korea is not allowed to test under multiple UN Security Council resolutions. They are prohibited from doing so. And look, we've offered the DPRK, and we continue to offer the opportunity for meaningful engagement and an improved bilateral relationship if it could demonstrate its willingness to uphold its international obligations and commitments. Unfortunately, North Korea hasn't done so. They haven't upheld their commitments. They continue to ignore those offers and instead offer false choices and a series of provocations, and that's not advancing the ball at all. So they have a choice here, but the linking of something that is by definition prohibited with something that is by definition defensive, transparent, and an annual exercise is just not appropriate.
I reject also New York Times editorial proposal to explore North Korea's real intentions.
Can you get the microphone?
Well, North Korea can demonstrate its intentions with its actions and not make these kinds of implicit threats, but instead uphold their obligations.
How can they demonstrate their intentions?
Well, not make implicit threats. Let's start there. Yes, right here.
Thank you. Happy New Year, Mary. My name is Jane from China Sina. What can we expect this year regarding to Sino-American relation? And to follow up on Russian, how will the slide of oil price affect U.S. and Russia's relation? Do you see it more economic issue, or is it a political battle behind it? Thank you.
Well, starting with your second question, when it comes to Russia's economy, I think President Putin has actually discussed the fact that the economic situation in Russia is related to a variety of factors. Some are sanctions, some are oil prices, some is general economic mismanagement. So to the extent that oil prices are a part of the conversation, I think that's probably how. The oil prices affect each country a little differently, though, depending on their economy, how much oil they have, what they do with it. But it's clearly having an impact on the Russian economy. When it comes to China, we have a whole host of issues this year that we need to work on together. Whether it's following up on the progress we made in the climate talks last year, where we announced an agreement to move the ball forward on climate and addressing climate change, whether it's Iran or North Korea or any of the issues that we work together on as members of the Security Council, but also just in general, those are places where we're really going to need to work together quite a bit. So I think those are probably going to be top priorities as well. And then, of course, there's the issue of cyber, which we talked about a lot at the end of last year, of course, and how we can more closely work together on that. Yes, let's finish up the front row, then I'm going to go around the room.
Hi, welcome back to Washington Foreign Press Center again. My name is Nadia Chao with the Liberty Times, Taiwan. Yesterday, you were asked about China's new flight route. I wonder The Minister of Foreign Affairs in Taiwan said that they already seek U.S. help 2 weeks ago because Taiwan protests and didn't want to accept the unilateral claim by China. I wonder how can U.S. assist? And China said U.S. experts were involved in the process of making assessment about this new law. Can you confirm that?
Well, the U.S., we did not work with China on these new air routes. I think there's been a little misinformation out there about that. It's my understanding China may have worked with ICAO, which is the international organization that deals with civil aviation. That would make sense. Our main concern when it comes to these new air routes is aviation safety. Obviously, we believe that no steps should be taken that threaten aviation safety, and certainly that maintaining and enhancing that is in the interest of all countries and regions of the world. So we've encouraged China to engage and consult with the parties affected to ensure air safety concerns are addressed as they go forward with these new air routes. That's our main concern.
Were U.S. Notified in advance? I mean, in 2007, China has the similar proposal, but at that time, U.S. opposed that idea. Has U.S. changed its position?
I'm not sure if we were notified in advance, and I don't know the specifics of what happened in 2007. For us, again, we note that China is going to do this, and what we're most concerned about is aviation security. So China needs to work with the parties affected to make sure they've addressed all those issues. I'm going all the way in the back, actually, the very last row, and then I will work through the middle, I promise.
Hi, I'm Silvia Chocarro from Radio France International. Can you tell us about the meeting is going to take place in Cuba next week? What are the main issues to be discussed? Who is going to be in that meeting? Also, if you are planning to make any new announcement before, like, for example, the one it was announced today before this meeting during the next days, and related to that, do you have any idea on how often you will have these kind of meetings?
So I don't expect any other announcements, but you never know. Sometimes we decide to announce things for certain reasons. In terms of the talks, Assistant Secretary Roberta Jacobson from the State Department will be going with a team. These were previously scheduled migration talks that we have on a regular basis with Cuba. So there will still be a portion about migration, but then there will also be a portion of the talks about the normalization of diplomatic relations process. So there's all these different logistical pieces that have to be agreed to before we can move forward with that. So that will be part of the talks as well. Human rights are always part of these talks. They're obviously very linked with migration issues. They will be a part of the conversation, but so will all the other issues that go along with normalizing relations. What was your third? I missed. Oh, yes. How often do we think these will? We're not sure yet. The migration talks had been a regular occurrence, but these may happen more frequently now that we're working on normalization as well. I don't have an estimate for you, but I can imagine the diplomatic engagement will increase given that we are trying to normalize this relationship as quickly as we can. Yes, let's stay in the back row, very back row on the left side.
Narayan Lakshman of The Hindu. I have two questions on India. The first is that yesterday a U.S. court dismissed the case brought against Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and I was wondering if you could just give me some reaction on that. And earlier today, Assistant Secretary Charles Rivkin was speaking at another event where he said that among the issues that Secretary Kerry and the other State Department officials would be speaking to their counterparts in India about would be issues of intellectual property as well as the bilateral investment treaty on the economic front. So how do you see these issues getting resolved as the engagement continues in the months ahead?
Well, you're right. Those are certainly issues that we talk about. The Secretary had a very good visit to India recently for Prime Minister Modi's economic summit in Gujarat, and a variety of issues were talked about, including those. I don't have anything to share about the path forward, but certainly are key issues that we talk about. In terms of the lawsuit, we've obviously seen the complaint that the Federal District Court against Prime Minister Modi has been dismissed. Based on the executive branch's brief that Prime Minister Modi is entitled to immunity as the sitting head of a foreign government. We are pleased that the court deferred to the determination of the U.S. government. Courts have consistently dismissed cases against sitting heads of state and heads of government on the basis of their immunity. Yes, this woman here. Yes, you.
Thank you. I'm Natalka Pisno for Ukrainian broadcasting company Studio 1+1. So I do have 3 questions about Ukraine.
Okay.
I believe you do know about all those terrorist attacks against the civil citizens of Ukraine in last few days near Donetsk and especially in Donetsk for today. So what the next? The members of People's Republic of Donetsk and People's Republic of Luhansk should make to make American government describe them as the members of terrorist organizations. And you do probably know about the pilot Nadia Savchenko, who is now in prison in Russia. So what the official position of American government about her? And a few days before, Russian Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Lavrov, said there is a huge possibility to move nuclear weapon to the territory of Crimea. So if in this case, what could be the next steps of the United States? Thank you.
So in terms of the prisoner issue, we do are deeply concerned by reports that Russia has moved her to solitary confinement. Understand that Ms. Savchenko, has been on a hunger strike for nearly a month to protest the terms of her detention. We call for her immediate release, as well as the release of other Ukrainian hostages held by Russia. That goes for a number of people who are detained. We call for the immediate release of all detained persons. That's part of the Minsk agreement. So certainly that's something very important to us. And we've condemned the continued increase of separatist violence. This week there was the shelling of the passenger bus, waiting at a checkpoint, renewed attacks on Donetsk airport, and separatist attempts to encroach on territory past the agreed ceasefire line under the terms of the Minsk agreement. So again, we call on Russia and the separatists it supports to immediately fulfill their commitments under the Minsk agreements. We will keep working. We're very engaged with the Ukrainians and with the Russians. And with our other partners, and there's ongoing diplomatic activity, some involving us and some not involving us, to try and get the parties to adhere to the Minsk agreements. We obviously believe the Ukrainians have, the Russians still have some work to do.
Will America recognize them as the terrorist organizations? I mean, the 2 of them, People's Republic of Donetsk and Luhansk.
Well, we clearly believe they're very dangerous armed separatists. That's how we refer to them, and don't have anything else beyond that. On that, yes, right here on the far right, yes.
Kasım Cindemir, Turkish Daily Habertürk. What is your policy of extradition requests, regarding extradition requests from Turkey? Has there been any request recently? And if so, what are you planning to do? Are you planning to extradite anybody in the near future?
Our policy is that we don't comment one way or the other on any questions about extradition requests. We just don't comment on that issue at all. Yes. Hello.
Thank you. I have a quick question. Reports coming out from South Asia, and in particular the Pakistani media, saying that the Pakistani government is planning to ban several terrorist organizations, including Haqqani Network and Jamaat-ud-Dawa. What do you say about that?
Well, we welcome the reports that the government of Pakistan plans to outlaw the Haqqani Network, Jamaat al-Dawa, and I think about 10 other organizations linked to violent extremism. If they go forward with this, an important step, certainly, towards eliminating terrorist activity in Pakistan. Secretary Kerry had a very good visit to Pakistan where he talked to the Pakistani government, as we always do, about counterterrorism, how we can work together more closely. Certainly this would be an important step going forward.
I believe they are serious this time because last time they banned LET, then Jamaat-ud-Dawa was formed.
Well, we certainly believe that if this goes forward, that it would be an important step. Yes, right here.
Thank you, Marie. I have a follow-up question about fighting ISIS. My name is Wei Xuejiao from China Central Television. So as we know, the United States continue airstrikes in Syria and Iraq against ISIS. So after the terror attack in France, and they send aircraft carrier, any more military deployment from the United States? And what is the biggest challenge now for the United States to fight against ISIS? Thank you.
Well, I think the terrorist attack in Paris underscores a couple things. We are very focused on ISIL in Iraq and in Syria. That is an ongoing effort that involves obviously the American military, our coalition partners. But that's not the only terrorist threat out there. And if this shows us anything, it's that there are other groups who are plotting and planning against us, against Western Europe, against elsewhere in the world, that there are possibly sleeper cells that we pay very close attention to, that we have remained focused on AQ Core in Afghanistan and Pakistan, on AQAP in Yemen, on AQIM, on Al-Shabaab, on Boko Haram, on all of these groups. So clearly, while we focus on ISIL, I think this is just a very sad reminder to people that there are threats out there that we are also focused on. And that's why you have to fight them where they train and where they plot and plan, and we're not going to let up on that, certainly. I'm going to go right behind you.
Thank you. This is Eleni Argyri, Greek Public TV. Did you have any comment on the upcoming elections in Greece? Because as you most likely know, there are elections there in 10 days from now, and there is a great possibility that a new left government will be formed. Thank you.
I don't have any specific comments on them. We'll see what happens with them. Obviously, we have a very close relationship with Greece, but we'll see what happens. Yes, I'm going to go in the back left, standing up. And then I'll work my way around the left side.
Thank you. This is Jahan Zaibali from Airway News TV Pakistan. United States recently designated Mullah Fazlullah, the DTP chief, as a world most wanted terrorist. Pakistan seeking his arrest from Afghanistan, and Pakistani military chief and ISI chief visited Kabul regarding this to hand over him to Pakistan. So is United States doing something or asking Afghanistan to hand over him to Pakistan?
Well, this is actually a topic that came up during the Secretary's meeting in Pakistan specifically. We did just recently designate him. The consequences of these designations are obviously an asset freeze, prohibition against U.S. persons engaged in transactions. It's really to try to cut off the funding and the financing and support for these kinds of terrorists. Certainly, we want to see these kinds of people who have plotted and planned terrorist attacks brought to justice and held accountable. And how that happens, we'll see, but certainly we believe it's important. Yes, I'm going to go to the second row right here. I'm going to start with you, and then I'll do the people on either side of you.
Hi, Mari. Irina Yelovska, Macedonian TV. By the way, happy Vasilitsa, that's Orthodox Christian New Year, which was yesterday.
Oh, thank you.
So I have a question for you. Today, the ongoing U.S. ambassador in Skopje, Mr. Paul Lawrence, in his last press statement said, I quote, "We are concerned Macedonia should be a member of NATO yesterday." Do you support his statement?
Well, I tend to support our ambassadors. I didn't see those statements. Look, NATO's door remains open to all European democracies that wish to join our alliance. They're in a position to further our principles and can contribute to the security of the North Atlantic area. We have said, NATO has said, that it supports Macedonia's aspirations to join the alliance when it's ready. Our position on that hasn't changed, certainly. The allies have also stated that Macedonia cannot receive an invitation to join the alliance until the disputed name issue with Greece is resolved. I know that's ongoing, but clearly it's an issue we're following very closely. Yes, to the left of you.
Thank you. Manar Ghouneib, Middle East News Agency, Egypt. I have two questions, actually. The first one is regarding the Egyptians kidnapped in Libya. The State Department has said that is following up this issue closely. But I'm just wondering if you are having any contacts with the Libyans or with the Egyptians regarding how to free these people. And regarding Libya also, if ISIS has recently announced that it has now a safe haven in Libya. So are you going to include the ISIS in Libya within your policy of fighting ISIS in Syria and Iraq?
Well, first, we do continue to follow the situation closely when it comes to the abduction, I think, of 21 Egyptian Coptic Christians in Libya. We've strongly condemned these kidnappings and certainly expressed our sympathy to the Egyptians who are and have been involved in this ordeal. I think the incident just underscores the need for the international community to come together to continue to support the Libyan people and their government during this, what is a pretty challenging time. I'm not sure if we've talked specifically with the Libyan government or the Egyptian government about this. I'm guessing we have. I'm just not sure. We have an ongoing dialogue with both of them, obviously, and this is something we're very concerned about, so I would guess we have. When it comes to the security situation in Libya, certainly folks are on the lookout for any notion that ISIS could be moving anywhere else in terms of having safe havens or places they operate and plot and plan. We're focused on Syria and Iraq right now. I've seen some of those reports. I can't confirm them independently if it's just ISIS, propaganda or if it's actually true. But certainly we're focused on the security situation and the extremist element in Libya, whatever they call themselves. But I'm not sure about the ISIS presence there. I'm not sure if there's anything to that or not. Yes. Do you have a follow-up?
Just another question is regarding the counter-terrorism efforts that Egypt is carrying out now. I'm just wondering if you have some latest contacts with Egypt regarding these efforts, especially after the United States has announced that there will be a summit on counter-extremism next month.
I do not know if we've talked to the Egyptians about the Countering Violent Extremism Summit. I don't know. But it's an issue we talk to the Egyptians about quite a bit. Clearly, both our ongoing counterterrorism efforts and theirs, they have real challenges and significant efforts are being undertaken, particularly in the Sinai. But the secretary, whenever he talks to the Egyptians, certainly talks about the counterterrorism issue. And going forward, I imagine they are one of the countries we will be talking to about the countering violent extremism issue, and how Egyptian leaders and Egyptian religious leaders, the importance of them standing up and saying what ISIS is doing is not Islamic, what these people in Paris are doing is not Islamic. And so that's clearly Egypt as a leader in the Islamic world is a key voice in terms of getting that message out there. Yes, right to your left.
Hyodong Ro with the Yonhap News Agency. As you know, there are historical issues to be addressed in Northeast Asia. And I heard that the improvement of the relationship between South Korea and Japan is a high priority for the U.S. government.
Absolutely.
Yes. So, but what I'm wondering is how much effort are you making, and what message are you trying to convey? I don't feel any progress recent days. Thank you.
Well, just a travel note, Ambassador Sun Kim, who's our Special Representative for North Korea Policy and our Deputy Assistant Secretary for Japan and Korea, will be traveling to Brussels on January 19th and 20th to attend the Japan Trilateral Forum, which is organized by the German Marshall Fund of the U.S. He'll meet with senior officials from the European Union and other interlocutors. Obviously, this is a key forum for us on the trilateral front when we talk about Japan and South Korea and their relationship, and also the relationship of the three countries. So as two of our closest allies in the world, we obviously believe that anything to improve relationship would be good and helpful. So this will be a key meeting coming up on that exact issue.
Do you have on historical issues?
On historical issues, well, we want countries in the region to address historical issues transparently, through dialogue, openly. We're well aware of the history here, and we know a lot of it is challenging to address, but we have common goals. They're both very, very close allies, so obviously anything we can do to improve any of those relationships is great. Yes, I'm going to go right behind you, and then I'm going to come up to you.
Thank you very much. My name is Dong Huiyu with China Review News Agency of Hong Kong. I have two follow-up questions regarding Taiwan. The first one, today, the spokesman for China for the ministry said as early as 2007, the CAAC has cooperated with US FAA to finish the safety assessment regarding this air route. And ICAO has approved and assigned the code for the air route.
As I said, just to answer your first question, we did not work with China on these new air routes. The
you
U.S.
deny
government did.
that argument, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so could you please elaborate what your concerns is about? Is it about the jets may be shut down by Taiwan, or is about the Chinese will use the air route for the military purpose?
I think it's, as I said, really we're focused on aviation safety, and you want to make sure where there are planes flying, there are very clear rules of the road. No, I guess no pun intended there. But I think that's our main concern. And I know China has been working with ICAO, who obviously is the regulatory body that governs some of this, and we're a member of ICAO. But I think that that's our main concern. It's the aviation safety issues, and you have to be very clear who's flying where, when, I think for fairly obvious reasons.
The second
Yes.
question, the Taiwan foreign minister today denied the reports that the U.S. government asked the Taiwan to change its representative in D.C. Would you like to confirm or deny that report?
Well, Taiwan's personnel decisions are matters for the Taiwanese authorities to manage. So that's really up to them who they choose as their personnel. I'm actually going to go to New York, and then I'm going to go to you. But because you're standing there, I'm going to go to New York.
Hello, this is Mehmet Sümer from TRT Turkish Radio Television. In the last days, you said in a press meeting your U.S. administration on Turkey is working very closely to block the passage through Turkey to Syria and the foreign fighters who want to join the ISIS. And can you give us details about this cooperation, and is U.S. administration satisfied with the Turkish efforts, and how do you evaluate the Turkey's efforts to stop that foreign fighters in the borders of Turkey?
Well, we are working very closely with Turkey on the issue of foreign fighters. Given their geographical location, they're obviously one of the countries most affected by this threat, and one of the countries who needs to do the most to really crack down on it. I would say a few things. The State Department has worked with an interagency team that includes folks from the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice, CIA, NCTC, really the people that focus on how you prevent people from getting across borders when you don't want them to work with our partners to put in place better practices. These are long borders, though, and they're fairly porous in some places, so it's a pretty big ongoing challenge. But we have very much been focused on working with countries like Turkey and others to prevent these fighters from being able not just to go to Syria or to Iraq, but then to go elsewhere. Yes. Let's go up here, and then I'll go back to Turkey.
Thank you, Marie. My name is Alex Lai with United Daily News of Taiwan. I have a follow-up question with the China's announcement with the air routes. I wonder, will you do any kind of thing to resolve this issue, or will you facilitate the talk between Taiwan and PRC government?
Well, I don't have any more details about the diplomatic conversations we're having. We obviously have publicly encouraged China to consult and engage with the parties that are affected by these new routes to make sure their air safety concerns are addressed. I don't have any more details on it for you than that. Nothing else. Who wanted to go to Turkey? Yes, okay. And then I'll go up to you. Yes.
Prominent Turkish journalist detained in Turkey after 14 December 2014 police raid to country's largest newspaper and the STV television. STV television group president Hidayet Karaca is still detained. State Department and White House expressed their concerns after the operations. And my question is, did or will Mr. Secretary Kerry or other State Department official raise this issue directly with their Turkish counterparts?
Well, I don't have any secretary conversations to read out for you, but certainly senior State Department officials do raise concerns about government interference and freedom of expression, about what we have often seen as a shrinking space for freedom of expression in Turkey. So that conversation is ongoing, but we have raised it publicly and privately.
Hello, Marie. I'm Michael Ignatiou from Mega TV Greece. I have a follow-up question on the elections. The possibility for the leftist party to take over the government is real, according to the polls. Do you worry because since these guys are not friendly to the United States and to NATO?
I think I will take the luxury of not doing political analysis on Greece's upcoming elections before they occur, or commenting on polls, obviously. But Greece is a very good partner, so we'll be watching. Yes.
Maria Garcia with Notimex Mexico. Thank you for doing this, Ms. Harf. Could you comment on the U.S. approach to Mexico regarding the setting of the maritime borders between the Gulf of Mexico?
I don't have any specific updates to share with you. Obviously, we work with Mexico on a host of issues, obviously including border issues, clearly. But I don't have any specifics for you on that today. I'm not aware of anything new. I'm happy to check with our team and see if there is, though. Yes. Okay.
President Obama said that it would be part of the new approach with Cuba.
Ah, yes. Well, everything is related to Cuba today, right? These days. I'm learning that very quickly. I'll check with our folks and see. Obviously, one of the reasons we wanted to normalize relations with Cuba was because of our role in the region. And having this country in the middle of the region that we didn't even engage with, really, we saw as something that was fairly limiting in our ability to have leverage in the region. So that's certainly part of what's driving it. Yes, the very tall green shirt gentleman in the middle.
Brian Beery, Washington correspondent for Europe Politics. Could you say more about the White House Summit on Violent Extremism in February? Was this already planned before the Paris attacks? Who's going to be invited, and what is the purpose of the summit?
Well, we were in the planning stages for a summit on countering violent extremism. I don't think the timing had been set. Obviously, after Paris, it was more imperative to do it more quickly. So I think that's why we're moving forward with it more quickly than we may have, although I'm not aware of a time having been set. We're still working through the agenda. We are still working through the invitees. So I think that more information about that will be coming out in the coming days, leading up to it. I think it's going to focus on a variety of issues, right? We have a lot of ongoing countering violent extremism programs around the world in different places. For example, how do you work with local authorities to see people in the communities that may be potentially turning violent, right? How do you spot them before something tragic happens, right? How do you get local communities, local religious leaders, local people involved in helping this fight? Because it's really hard to do just at a national level. It's also really hard to do just at a local level. So we have these programs going on around the world, but it's certainly going to be a very wide-ranging agenda. I know that covers local efforts by national leaders, how you bring in civil society, how you bring in religious leaders, how you bring in non-governmental organizations to try not just to address people once they're threats, but to address some of the conditions that often cause extremism. And they're not the same everywhere, right? But to sort of start to address some of those issues in places around the world, I think that's going to be a part of it too. Okay, we'll do one more in the front.
Nice to see you again here. And my name is Chung Ho-yoon from Joseon Daily newspaper in Korea. I'd like to follow the historic issue. Prime Minister Abe is going to deliver some statement in summer maybe. What do you expect from Abe's statement? Somebody told that remorse is not enough. We need some kind of apology. So what do you think about that?
Well, we know the historical issues are obviously very sensitive ones. I know there's been a lot of discussion about what Prime Minister Abe may say, and he has made many remarks, I think, up until this point about Japan-South Korea relations on historical issues. We have, earlier this month, welcomed some of his comments, including a positive message he had on history issues and Japan's post-war contributions to peace. So I don't think I'm probably the best person to preview his comments. I haven't been consulted on them personally. But, the Secretary has talked to Foreign Minister Kishida and other Japanese officials about 2015, pursuing avenues of cooperation, focusing on the threats we have now, when issues arise, addressing them through dialogue, which is the best way to do it. No more preview. I'll let them preview their own speech, yes. And then I'm going to you next.
Hi, this is Liu Jiafei from China's Xinhua News Agency. During today's White House briefing, when asked whether the United States will strike a deal with Iran, even if Americans are continued to be held by Iran, the spokesperson said, quote, these are both priorities that are raised with the Iranians on separate tracks.
Yes.
Can I interpret that as the answer is yes? And what is your comment on the question?
Yes, so they are... we want to get a nuclear agreement with Iran that prevents them from getting a nuclear weapon and cuts off the pathways that they could do so, whether it's enrichment, uranium enrichment, the covert pathway, the different pathways they have. Separately, we raise the American citizens. We don't want to link the two, and we don't want the Iranians linking the two. The American citizens should be released, period, regardless of the nuclear negotiations or where we are in those. So that's why they're separate issues, but we do always raise them. And Secretary Kerry did in his meetings yesterday.
So the United States will continue to, the United States will strike a deal, right?
If we can get to a comprehensive agreement that cuts off Iran's pathways to a nuclear weapon, obviously that's the goal of these negotiations. Separate and apart from that, we want Iran to release the Americans that are being detained there. They are separate issues. Yes. Yes, I'm going to you, and then I'm going to do a few more in the back. I don't have a watch on, so I'll be up here for 2 hours if you're not careful.
Okay. Igor Dunaevsky from Russian newspaper. There was a publication in Bloomberg in the beginning of the year quoting administration officials that was saying that United States is looking for cooperation with Russia in different fields despite of having differences on Ukraine. So there's a as was mentioned, there's a counter-terrorist summit next week planned in Washington. I just wonder if there any kind of invitation was sent to Russia or will be sent to Russia, and does the United States see Russia as a partner in countering terrorism? And just second brief question. Yesterday there was a report published on fiscal transparency, and Ukraine was listed among the countries that doesn't comply with the United States requirements. Does that affect United States plans for financial assistance to Ukraine?
On the first question, we have worked with Russia on counterterrorism issues. They certainly, it's an issue they're very focused on, and we have worked with them. It's an issue that Secretary Kerry and Foreign Minister Lavrov often talk about bilaterally, and it's certainly something we will continue talking to them about. It is an issue where we do believe we can work together. When it comes to Ukraine and the financial situation, I know you all probably saw yesterday, I think it was yesterday, all the days sort of meshed together, that we announced a loan guarantee of $1 billion to the government of Ukraine for the first half of 2015. We are willing to give them a second one if they meet certain financial criteria, if they meet certain criteria such as tackling corruption. That's number one on the list. So I'm not familiar with the rankings that you said were released, but clearly we believe it's important for them to continue tackling corruption as they go forward. It's an important issue. Oh, nothing on invitations at this point. I'm going to do a few more in the back. Yes, there's 3 of you in the middle there. I'm just going to go around the row. Just pass the mic to each other.
Takashi Oshima from Japanese Press Asahi Shimbun. Back to the question on Cuba. First question is, does the administration have any expectation that the normalized relation with Cuba might have any impact on North Korea's attitude toward U.S.? Second question is, I'm just curious that if you could tell us whether the status of the Guantanamo might be the topic on the discussion with Cuban government, and if normalized relation with Cuba, does that affect anything to do the status of the Guantanamo?
On your last 2 questions, I actually don't know the answer. Someone asked them at the State Department briefing today, and I said I would look into it. I don't know if Guantanamo is going to be discussed next week. I haven't heard that it is, but obviously there are 122 detainees that remain at Guantanamo. We're committed to getting the prison closed. I don't know about the broader issue. And I'm not sure. It's an interesting question. One of the reasons, as I said to your colleagues' questions, we wanted to normalize relations is we felt that our policy was hurting us in the region, and we have seen a very positive reaction from countries around the world to the fact that we're normalizing relations with Cuba. I'm not really sure how North Korea will act. I'm not probably going to guess about that. Okay, let's continue along the road.
Okay, thank you, Marie. Jason Zhang with Yonhap News Agency. I'm not sure if this is something you can comment on, but do you have anything to say about the comments from Pope Francis that there are limits to freedom of speech?
I tend to agree with the Pope on things. I should probably say that as a general statement. I think a couple things in general about this. We very strongly believe that there should be freedom of speech. Now, being allowed to publish whatever you want doesn't mean you have to prove that you can. These are very difficult decisions that all of your media organizations have probably had to deal with when it comes to this cartoon and other things. And there's a variety of factors that go into how you decide what to publish. We feel very strongly that the decision should be yours. You should not be prevented from publishing things. You should be allowed to. It doesn't mean you have to. These are tough decisions and very issues that people have very strong personal feelings about, and we certainly recognize that. Yeah, we'll go to next, and then we can follow up with you. Yes.
Okay. Byung-woo Bae with Kookmin Daily in South Korea. Okay. President Park Geun-hye of the South Korea said in a New Year address, she wanted to meet with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, and in the process, North Korea has a commitment to non-nuclearization of Korean Peninsula. Could not be a prerequisite or a precondition for the summit between two leaders. What's your comment on that?
Well, we've long welcomed ROK efforts to improve inter-Korean relations through constructive dialogue, and we urge the DPRK to respond positively to President Park's tireless efforts to pursue such dialogue. And look, progress in inter-Korean dialogue could play an important role in bringing North Korea back to authentic and credible denuclearization negotiations, which is, of course, our goal. Do you have a follow-up on the Pope? And then I'm going to do two more in the back.
Okay, thank you. Andrei Sitov again. I just wanted to follow up on the Pope Francis question and freedom of speech. Obviously, by default, it looks like publishing a joke, a cartoon on the prophet is okay.
I'm not saying it's okay or not okay. I'm saying that each media organization should have the freedom to decide whether they think they should publish it. It's not my decision to make.
Yes, does this also refer to, say, anti-Semitic jokes,
well,
anti-gay jokes, things of that nature?
Certainly, the thing about freedom of speech is that we believe very strongly in this country that people should have the freedom to say what's on their minds, even if it is something we find horrifically offensive. And that in this great sort of marketplace of ideas we all live in, that ultimately the ideas that adhere to universal rights of freedom of expression, of tolerance, of plurality will win out. And that's, you know, and in that kind of atmosphere, there will be people who say things you vehemently disagree with and you find offensive. But we don't want to get in the business of saying what's okay and what's not, because then where does the line stop? Exactly. That's why there should be no line. That's my... Okay, I'm going to do two more in the back. You, and then we're going to finish with you.
Thank you. I'm Juan Fauzo of El País, a Spanish newspaper. I wanted to do a follow-up in Cuba, please. If you could make us any forecast on when do you think the diplomatic relations could be restored with Cuba? And, for instance, when should we expect the American embassy to reopen in Havana, if this could be, for instance, before the summer? Thank you.
As soon as possible. You know, it's hard to tell. It's hard to guess before we have this first round of normalization talks next week. We'll probably have a better sense after that. We have the interest section there, obviously, so that will become our embassy. I do not have a prediction to make for you, though, as soon as possible. Yes.
I'm Anwar Iqbal. I work for Pakistan's Dawn newspaper. And basically, I wanted to ask about Pope's statement, but most of it has been asked already. But one point was left, because that he also pointed at one of his aides and said that if he were to curse my mother, he will go back with a bloodied nose. So does it, I mean, obviously it implied that insulting religious personalities leads to violence. Do you agree with this assumption?
Was there a follow-up? You hesitated. Okay. Well, I'll just address that. Look, the Pope has spoken out very strongly on the importance of tolerance in a variety of ways since he's become Pope. Certainly, he was very involved, of course, in our Cuba discussions, but he's been really a leading voice of tolerance and plurality, even for people that aren't Catholic, of course. I think the point he would make, not speaking for him, but what we would make is that you may vehemently disagree with what people say, but the way you combat that isn't through violence, it's through more speech. And that's what you should do if you don't like what someone writes. It's not picking up an AK-47 and storming a newspaper. That's just not how you deal with this.
Okay, thank you. And also, Secretary Kerry's visit to Pakistan, you just addressed it. How do you review that visit? Was it a successful visit? Did he achieve the goals that he wanted to achieve? And did he actually ask Pakistan to ban Lashkar-e-Taiba and other groups?
Well, it was a successful visit. He had a number of conversations, not just about counterterrorism issues, although that was a huge focus, and obviously wanted to personally express his condolences over the horrific attack in Peshawar, but also about economic issues and other issues. There's a broad relationship that goes beyond security, and I think that was a really key part of what he wanted to focus on when he was there. The banning of these terrorist groups is obviously for the government of Pakistan to decide on, but it was a very good visit. Again, as I said, he's in Paris today, and then he'll be returning home. But I have a feeling that 2015 will be as busy, if not busier, with travel, with him getting out there, talking to different folks in different countries to advance all of these issues you all asked about. And I'm sure there are many more questions that I didn't get to, and I'm very sorry for that. But I'll be back next month. So write them down, and I was very happy to be here. And again, here's to a better 2014 than 2015.
Thanks.
2015 than 2014.